Welcome back to the 2-Minute Warning. Today I'm looking at the Cleveland Browns and determining whether or not I think they will win the Super Bowl in the upcoming 2021 season. But before we get into that topic, question for those of you viewing, comment down below, what is your way too early Super Bowl matchup for 2021? You got the Bucks and Chiefs rematch, you got the Bucks and Browns, you got the Rams, whoever your Super Bowl matchup is, comment down below, and of course comment your winner as well. But getting into this topic, before I'm going to address the elephant in the room of the Kansas City Chiefs, obviously possibly stopping from the Browns even getting there, I'm going to at least take a look at the Browns. Looking at this roster, it's one of the best, possibly if not the best roster in the NFL. At quarterback, you have a top 12, top 10 guy in Baker Mayfield. Offensive line, top 3 in the NFL. Backfield, I think you had the best duo of running backs in the NFL between Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt. Looking at the receiving core, when healthy, top 5 receiving core in the NFL between OBJ, Jarvis Landry, Rashard Higgins, Austin Hooper, David Njoku. I like that double tight end threat, and the offense is well coached and well managed as well with Kevin Stefanski, reigning coach of the year. Looking at the defense, the pass rushers get in there with Myles Garrett, Malik Jackson, Takkarist McKinley, Jadeveon Clowney. Don't know if he'll get 17 games out of him, but he'll be there situationally. And as long as he's healthy, he's still a good player and is still a crazy talent. You just have to manage him correctly. Linebacker core, that's finally getting somewhere. I liked Anthony Walker, but now that you've got JOK in the second round of this NFL draft, you have a better linebacker core, one of the better linebacker cores in the NFL. Looking at the secondary, that was the Browns' biggest weakness last year, and that was kind of, I don't want to say preventing them from going all the way, but if you had to pick one thing, the secondary definitely was not the Browns' strong suit by any means. And you already had some talent right there. You had a number one corner like Denzel Ward, but now you're getting some guys back on the depth chart that are healthy, and Grant Delpit and Greedy Williams. We don't even know really how good those guys are, so that's a wild card. Those are two wild card players that have pretty good upside for the Browns. They addressed the secondary even more in free agency, adding a good slot corner in Troy Hill and a great captain and safety in John Johnson in the draft. They didn't stop there. They went out there and got a pretty good steal corner out of Greg Newsome. Overall, like I said, this Browns roster is stacked from top to bottom, head to toe. There's depth, there's star talent, there's power, there's leadership, there's well management. You can't really find a flaw. I guess if you had to pick a flaw, maybe you could question the secondary just a little bit because there's so many new guys. Greedy Williams, Grant Delpit, Troy Hill, John Johnson, Greg Newsome. On paper, all those guys to help out Denzel Ward are perfect. But just not seeing them play together yet, not having any NFL snaps yet, not even having OTAs yet. I guess the only thing they're going to have to work through some growing pains, but halfway into the season, come playoff time, this defense and secondary is going to be one of the best in the NFL. So my only, I guess, nitpick, if I had to be, is they might have a rough start just because they're all new together. But like I said, head to toe, this roster is ready to face anyone, but winning the Super Bowl, it's way easier said than done. There's been great teams before that just fall short. I mean, Buffalo Bills, they went to the 4 Super Bowls in a row. They lost all 4. Winning the Super Bowl is easier said than done. But I'm not saying the Browns don't have it. Obviously, the elephant in the room, like I said in the beginning of the video, is going to be, can they even get there? Can they get through the Kansas City Chiefs? I mean, looking at that matchup, the Chiefs, I don't want to say they have a better O-line than the Browns, but they built it up or rebuilt it enough to possibly be on par with the Browns, getting a all-pro left tackle in Orlando Brown Jr., locking in the interior with Austin Blythe at center, and Joe Thuney at guard, and Kyle Long at guard. And you also drafted a great center, you as in the Chiefs. They drafted a pretty good center, if not the best center in the second round in the NFL draft. So they have depth and star power and rebuilt at that offensive line. So the Chiefs are getting up there as well. We know how good Patrick Mahomes is. Their backfield's not too bad. Clyde Edwards-Helaire. Receiving core, it doesn't have as much depth as the Browns, but I do think it has just as much, if not more, star power with the Browns. Fastest guy in the NFL in Tyreek Hill. A lot of speed left in McCole Hardman and Travis Kelce. Top 2, top 3, maybe number 1 tied in the NFL. Looking at the defense, you got Frank Clark and Chris Jones in the pass rush. You got Tyrann Mathieu leading the secondary. Again, I think they have just as much star power as the Browns on defense, but when it comes to depth, I do think the Browns 100% outmatch them. So arguably, you could say on paper today, the Browns do have a better roster than the Kansas City Chiefs, of course, and I would even argue and agree that they have a better roster than the Kansas City Chiefs. And of course, there's other teams as well. I don't want to, oversimplify them just automatically beating the Bills, automatically knocking out their rivals in Baltimore Ravens, automatically knocking out the up-and-coming Dolphins, up-and-coming Chargers. I don't want to just automatically assume that, but Chiefs just having the crown, being the reigning champions in the AFC, I'm just kind of looking at them as, of course, the biggest threat, and I think everyone else would agree. No disrespect to the Bills and Ravens and those other teams, like I said, but just focusing on the biggest guy that everyone's going to have to worry about. I'm looking at the Kansas City Chiefs. And like I said, top to bottom, when it comes to star power and depth combined, I do think the Browns have a better roster than the Chiefs. And if they beat them, I'm not surprised. But sometimes, at offensive line, Browns beat them. Receiving core, Browns beat them. Backfield, Browns beat them. Defense, I would argue Browns beat them. But the quarterback position is such a large jump between Patrick Mahomes and Baker Mayfield. We're talking about a guy that's top 12 and top 10 in Baker Mayfield to Patrick Mahomes, who's top 1 and top 3 at worst. Depends how critical some analysts or scouts are. There's no way he's down in your top 3 quarterbacks in the NFL. I don't think there's any way he wouldn't be in your top 2 or number 1. But giving it the benefit of the doubt, at worst, Patrick Mahomes is best top 3 in the NFL. So that being such a large jump is obviously a huge factor. You'd think the rest of the Browns roster would be able to make up for, having a better secondary, better offensive line, better backfield, better receiving core, better pass rush, whatever you want to call it. But sometimes it's just not enough. The quarterback is the most important position on the field, and it has to carry the team. A perfect example was last year in the NFL or NFC divisional round. You had the Los Angeles Rams versus the Green Bay Packers. LA Rams, they last year had a similar roster to the Cleveland Browns this year. They have the better offense, or just as good offense line as the Packers. That's debatable. You arguably had just as good backfield. The receiving core, yes, the Packers have Devontae Adams, but the Rams, they got Cooper Kupp, Robert Woods, Van Jefferson, Josh Reynolds, Tyler Higbee, Gerald Everett. They have a better receiving core when it comes to star power and depth. Better defense, Aaron Donald, Jalen Ramsey, just like the Browns got Myles Garrett, Denzel Ward, and then the secondary and depth behind them and Leonard Floyd to help out Aaron Donald up front. It's just like Jadeveon Clowney helping out Myles Garrett up front, and then having John Johnson and Troy Hill on the Rams last year. It's just like having them on the Browns this year. The Rams did have a better roster than the Packers last year, but looking at that quarterback matchup, when you saw Aaron Rodgers and Jared Goff, the rest of the team wasn't enough, and the quarterback matchup being so heavily weighted and so heavily off, Aaron Rodgers easily won that battle. Not to say the Rams had zero chance, but it was a dominant game for the Packers, and that is my biggest fear for the Browns. It is going to be Baker Mayfield versus Patrick Mahomes, and I don't think Baker Mayfield and Patrick Mahomes is as big of a gap as Jared Goff and Aaron Rodgers. I think Baker is definitely much better than Jared Goff, in my opinion, and Patrick Mahomes is better than Aaron Rodgers. But even then, there is still a substantial gap, in my opinion, by at least 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 quarterbacks I think would go between those two. And I don't know if the rest of the roster can make up for it, but Baker Mayfield finally getting some consistent offense. Baker Mayfield finally getting OBJ back in a healthy season. Baker Mayfield finally getting a playoff win. This Browns team having confidence. And Baker Mayfield finally having a defense to rely on. This could change things. Jared Goff had the roster he did last year, the year before, and still couldn't win it in the big game against the Patriots. Rams had a better roster, but when you had Tom Brady versus Jared Goff, the quarterback matchup was too heavily favored over Jared Goff, and who's to say Baker Mayfield won't fall that same way for him, and Patrick Mahomes is just too heavily favored over him. But I do think Baker is a different guy from Jared Goff, and it's not fair to completely compare them. I think it's enough of an analogy to bring up, but again, Baker Mayfield I think is a much better player than Goff, and I think Baker could be on the brink of top 12 quarterback to possibly top 8, top 7, top 6, top 5, and of course I have to assume, let's say the Browns do beat the Chiefs. Can they go up there and match the Tampa Bay Buccaneers? And that's where things get a little shaky. I think the Browns and Bucks, number 1, number 2 roster in the NFL, and that's where things get hard to compare. Pass rush, I think would go in the Bucks' favor. Shaq Barrett, JPP, Vita Vea, Ndamukong Suh, William Golston, linebacker duo. I like Devin White and Levante David. Secondary, I think the Browns win that one. They got John Johnson, Troy Hill, Greg Newsome, Denzel Ward, Grant Dilbert, Greedy Williams. But looking at the Bucks, they still have talent of Carlton Davis, Sean Murphy-Bunting, Antoine Winfield Jr., but I do think the Browns win the secondary. Bucks win the front 7. Looking at the offense, Bucks win the receiving core with Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, Scotty Miller, Antonio Brown, Rob Gronkowski, but Browns win offensive line. Backfield, Browns win that one. Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt over Giovanni Bernard, Leonard Fournette, and Ronald Jones, but quarterback matchup, I'm giving it Tom Brady over Baker Mayfield. Those two are so tough and so close. They are so nitpick tight, and that would be my ideal Super Bowl. I think these would possibly be the 2 best rosters in the NFL. I'd love to see the Bucks and Browns matchup just because from head to toe, I think those are the 2 best rosters in the NFL. I like the Chiefs, and I think Patrick Mahomes is a better quarterback than either of those guys at this point in their careers, but when you consider the entire team, the quarterback, running back, offensive line, receivers, tight ends, everything, these are the two best rosters in football. So I definitely think the Browns can 100% get there. I already have them being a lock as a AFC Championship appearance at the bare minimum, but it's going to be the big question of, can Baker Mayfield win the big game? I have my questions about Baker Mayfield. I believe in him, and I do think he's done more for the Browns than they could ever ask for. He's already got their first playoff win in just 3 years, with how much they've already doubted this year when not having Kevin Stefanski in the game against the Steelers yet. It didn't matter, and the Browns pulled it off, and they were even close to beating the Chiefs here at 1.5 points away and driving down the field to possibly get it done. Maybe if Rashard Higgins didn't fumble the ball. Browns were close last year to make a serious run, and this year they're much better from the draft, from free agency, and just experience overall, getting guys healthy again. OBJ, Baker Mayfield finally having more experience. Kevin Stefanski having a whole year of the NFL under his belt. This Browns team is going to be dangerous, and I have them at the bare minimum making the AFC Championship, and I truly believe they can win the Super Bowl. But will they? That is a tough question, and I just have to see these guys click. For me to finally say yes or no, it's going to take me to watch halfway through the season. Is John Johnson, Troy Hill, Greg Newsome, Grant Delpit, are these guys going to pan out? I know John Johnson, Troy Hill, those guys are proven, but some of these new guys, Greg Newsome, JOK, will Jadeveon Clowney stay healthy? Will OBJ stay healthy? Browns, they just have a lot of variables that need to go in their favor, and I think it's possible. Like I said, being well coached by Kevin Stefanski, being well led by Baker Mayfield, I think it could, I don't want to say easily be done, but possibly be done and realistically be done. But we just have to see it come into fruition. I like this Browns roster head to toe. I said it time and time again, but it's true. I don't think there's really a weak spot on this Browns team. They're one of the strongest rosters in the NFL, if not the strongest. I wouldn't give them number one roster, but you can make the argument. I wouldn't argue against you. I do think the argument could be made. Again, AFC Championship, I have them making it, and I have them facing the Chiefs. But the question is going to be, can Baker Mayfield lead the roster past the Chiefs? I think the Browns roster outstacked the Chiefs. But when it comes to the quarterback matchup, Patrick Mahomes is well above Baker Mayfield, and I don't know if that'll be too much for the Browns to overcome. And the question will be answered come playoff time, come AFC Championship time. And I think if they could get past the Chiefs, they can then get past the Bucs. And I don't want to say if you do one, you'll automatically get the other, because it's not that easy by any means. But the Browns just somehow, if they get to the Super Bowl, I don't think the entire state of Ohio would let them lose. But we'll just have to see. Can this Browns team win the Super Bowl? 100%, absolutely. But will they is a question for me. I just have to see these guys click, and will they be busts? Will they be hits like the new guys in Greg Newsome and JOK? Browns love them, and I love them, but we just have to see them actually play and see if they'll be the hits we think. If one of them or both of them turn out to be a bust and things start to change, but on paper, I do think they could get to the Super Bowl. I just have to see a little more plays. I have to see an actual NFL game to see how this team clicks before I can say the yes or no. But will they get there? I think there's a good chance, but we just have to see, like I said, how injuries and new teammates will do. But I think if they get the chemistry down, we could see this Browns team 100% in the Super Bowl. But as always, guys, I want to hear your opinions. Do you think the Browns will make it to the Super Bowl? A, that's the first question. And B, do you think they'll win the Super Bowl? Because it's two different parts. Making it, it's obviously an acknowledgement, and it's obviously an accomplishment, but until you win it all, you won't be remembered forever. If you win that all, forever champions, and no one can take that away from you. So as always, guys, I do want to hear your thoughts. Do you think the Browns will win the Super Bowl in 2021? I think they got a hell of a good shot, but I want to hear your guys' opinions. And as always, thanks for watching.